Hey everybody, Mr. Vasey here. This is our first out-of-school video where we're gonna learn something. Before we left, we were talking about the quadratic formula. Today, I'm gonna show you why you need it.
All right, let me bust out my handy-dandy notebook and some of my son's markers that I stole, and I'm gonna show you what the quadratic formula is for. But first, we got to remember what quadratic means. So when we're talking about a quadratic, basically that's telling you that the degree or the highest exponent is square. So we have a second degree polynomial here. Now the shape that makes when you graph something like that is parabola, that's right. Thanks, Ray. And so when you've got a parabola, you've got this shape right here, like this. Now, a parabola can have some zeros. So for example, if you've got the x-axis cutting through here, if you're looking where this parabola hits, then you've got two zeros in this case. A parabola could have two zeros. It could have 1 0 if it hits just right here at the vertex, or it could have no zeros, 0 zeros. You might be thinking to yourself, we've already done this. We've graphed them. We found the zeros. Well, yeah, you used a technique to find some zeros. Why do we need the quadratic formula? Well, let me give you an example. So let's say that we had a little tiny stick to cut. Now, that little stick represented a quadratic that is very simplistic. So for example, I might give you something like this. Y equals x plus 2 times x minus 3. And just looking at this, you might think, well, that's not overly simplistic. Well, the reason why it's simple is because it's already factored. So if you could factor it, or if it's already factored, finding the zeros is real simple. Factoring is a very nice tool for something that's pretty simple, that's factorable. So for example, what would make this thing 0? Well, if x was -2, this would be 0. Then 0 times anything else is going to be 0. So that's one of them. And then for this one, if x was +3, notice how I got to do the opposite, because if I plug it in there, a +3 minus 3 would be 0. So if I put in a -3, -3 minus 3 is not 0. So these are my two numbers that make this thing 0. So if I have something that's factorable, factoring is kind of like using almost no tools, how I use my super ridiculously strong arms to break that stick. I didn't even need a tool. It's just done for me. Well, there are other situations where the stick is a little larger. For this example, maybe it's not factorable. It doesn't come out real pretty like -2 and 3. But if you graph it, you use that good old graphing calculator and you're like, and then you can find these 2 points, and maybe they're hideous. Maybe this is like -1.7356211110, and this is out here at like 3.72533216672. So maybe they're really ugly, but graphing it, you could still find them. So you may need a tool, you may need your graphing calculator, which is like the saw, but you can get the job done. Now, believe it or not, there are larger sticks in the world. That ridiculously amazing chainsaw that I used is like the quadratic formula. It's a tool that's so powerful, you don't always need to use it, but whenever you do, it just takes care of business. So the quadratic formula, for the, I think, 3 of you that remembered, is something like this. You're going to find the zeros by doing this little thing right here. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And I know right now you're thinking this is ridiculous, but it's actually really nice. All over 2a. And if you're wondering what the a, the b, and the c are, it's pretty simple. When you have an equation, if you write it out like this, you write the x squared term plus the x term plus your normal constant number, and then equals 0, so you get everything on one side. Put x squared first, then x, then just your normal number. The a, the b, and the c are as follows. The a is the number that's in front of x squared. So say we have a 3 here, a is 3. B is the number that's in front of x. So say we have a 4 here, b is 4. And c is whatever number is hanging out at the end. So let's say a negative 1's chilling over here. Negative 1 is your c. You take your a, your b, and your c, you plug them into this monstrosity, and whatever comes out is your answer. And I know you might be thinking, that's a lot of extra work. I could just graph it. Well, just like we saw with the log, sometimes there are going to be situations where you can't just graph it. And that's what we're going to get into next. But for right now, I want you guys to do some practice by plugging in to the quadratic formula to get your answers. So let's do one quick example, and then I'm going to have you guys do some of your own. I think it's time for the mauve marker. So let's do something like this. Let's do y equals x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now this thing's written out all pretty. I could factor it, but I'm going to show you that the quadratic works no matter what. So if I'm looking for a, b, and c, my a is 3. Somebody better stop me. My a is the number right in front of x squared. So my a is 1. Because there's an invisible little 1 right there. You can't see it. And then my b is 5. My c is 6. So let's plug this in, shall we? All right, negative b. Negative 5 plus or minus. And I know I'm going a little fast, but you can always pause it, take your time, drink some water. B squared, so I'm going to put 5 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So that beauty right there. Then from there I can start simplifying. I don't have much paper left. I'm going to have to write on the carpet. So I've got negative 5 plus or minus. Inside of here, I've got a 25 minus a 4 times 1 times 6. So 25 minus 24, which is just 1. And then it's all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. So now we've got two possible answers here. I've got negative 5 plus the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is just 1. So negative 5 plus 1 is going to give me negative 4. Divided by 2 is going to give me negative 2. My second answer is going to be negative 5 minus 1, which is negative 6, divided by 2, which is negative 3. That's a crazy looking 3. But those are my two zeros. You did it. So now you guys are going to try a few of these simpler ones, even though you may be able to factor them, or you may be able to graph them. I want you to use the quadratic formula, okay? All right, I will talk to you guys soon. Here is the first assignment.